the 5-1 win at Selhurst Park, very impressive result, a bit of a statement to go and win there so comfortably. But drilling down into the big story of those two games was Gabriel Jesus, and it wasn't long ago. I think it was maybe a week or two ago that we were talking about how Arsenal need a goal scorer, we need goals from elsewhere, that goal threat, and a little bit critical of Gabriel Jesus. And I mean, that's how quickly the narrative can change in football, isn't it?
It is. Headlines writer's dream, isn't it? Jesus resurrected at Christmas. It was. It's been a remarkable turnaround for him. And I was at the first game. I was at the Palace Cup game, and that second half hat trick that he scored, the manner of the finishes that he produced. I mean, the first one was incredible. When he scored literally one goal in like 40 games, and then you go through one-on-one, and we've seen he's been so shy of confidence, and then to produce a finish like that off the cuff, it was an unbelievable finish, and you could just see that, honestly, the weight lift off his shoulders, and he was just a completely different player from the moment that goal went in. The movement, he looked faster, and the way he took those final two finishes to complete the hat trick as well. There was no doubt in his mind. He actually looked up, he saw where the keeper was. You could see it in the sort of slow-mo replays. There was no, it was just so calm, and then it was ruthless at finishes. Real conviction there, which we haven't seen from him in a long time. And he obviously followed that on with the 2 goals in the first sort of 15 minutes or so at Selhurst Park at the weekend. It's just a mad game, football, isn't it? It really is. And it just shows, even at the top level, at the elite level, what confidence does and how it can completely transform a player. And it's crucial for Arsenal. I mean, you've absolutely been waiting for so long for Jesus to find his scoring touch again, and now he has. And like Mikel said afterwards, didn't it? It's all about consistency now. It's all well and good doing it, for a couple of games, but it's about doing it over a period of months now. And Arsenal are going to need that over the second half of the season. And if Jesus can get back to that player that we saw, and I know it's kind of almost boring talking about it now as Arsenal fans, those first few months of Jesus before the World Cup, before the injury. Mikel said he transformed, he changed Arsenal's world, and he did. He was that good those first few months. I've very rarely seen a player make the sort of impression that he did in those few months. But that was just such a long time ago now, and it kind of began to felt like that wasn't the norm for Jesus. That was the kind of outlying period, and then what we've seen since was the real Jesus. But this has just been a little bit of a sort of just a period where we can all kind of remember how good he was and what he can produce when he is on form. And hopefully, for Arsenal's sake, he can continue to do that over the coming weeks. And obviously, I'm sure we're going to talk about Bukayo Saka very, very soon in terms of the injury. But with Saka now out, which we know he's going to be out for a long time, Arsenal are needing players to step up and try and fill the void that he is going to leave. And if Jesus can do that, not just at central striker, but possibly playing on the right wing, which he's done before, then that's going to be hugely beneficial to Arsenal.
It must be really encouraging that he did actually back that hat-trick up in midweek with another 2 goals, albeit against the same opposition. But, the only goals he'd scored lately was against Preston, and there was a feeling hopefully that would give him the confidence back, but that proved to be a false dawn. Whereas this time he's done it in back-to-back games. Should have actually had back-to-back hat-tricks. But as you say, the finishes in those ones, the second one in the 5-1 win at the weekend was just instinctive, perfectly placed, a great finish. And as you say, the 3 in midweek were brilliant finishes as well. Especially, the first one, that's not a striker without confidence. I don't know where he got that finish from, but, he didn't lash at it. He picked the exact right finish for that moment. So, I mean, if you can get Jesus back with confidence, I mean, I said that changed the narrative. Does it change the reality of Arsenal in terms of what we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, maybe needing a new striker, or do we need to see it for that consistency, that a bit more of a prolonged period from Jesus before we can jump to that conclusion?
Oh, I think you definitely need to see it over a more prolonged period than just 2 games. He's going to need to do it basically for the second half of the season now. I don't think it really changes the narrative ahead of January, because I'm just not sure Arsenal are going to be signing a striker in January, whatever happens, even if Jesus hadn't been scoring goals in the last week or so. So I don't think it really changes the narrative too much on that. But he's going to need to do it. What I really liked about the Crystal Palace game, the second one, was the 2 goals were great early on, and they were both quite instinctive finishes. You're right, the second one was brilliant. The way he bent that into the top corner, absolutely perfect it was. But I really like the fact that he was involved then in a couple of the other goals. Obviously, very unlucky not to get the hat trick with the header, which was a great header that came back off the post. Havertz obviously put that in. We were disappointed with the one which led to Martinelli's goal when he should have scored. That one, it was on his left foot, but he still should have scored that. But the fact he was there, he was in the middle, he was there, a striker in the area you want your striker to be. He wasn't, which we've seen from Jesus a lot of times, drifting out wide, and when balls come into the box, he's just nowhere to be seen. And it's like, where's your striker? But in this instance, I think because he's so confident, he's now sniffing goals, he's smelling goals. So he wants to be in that area to get on the end of the crosses that he did in those two moments as well. And that's big for Arsenal as well, that I think that he feels like now he wants to score goals and he can score goals, and he's going to get in the area to finish it off. Obviously, again, we'll go back to Saka, but we'll wait and see what Mikel's going to end up doing to sort of counter what's happening with Bukayo Saka at the moment. But it would kind of be a shame to take Jesus out the centre because of what he's just done. But he is an option on that right-hand side as well. So we'll have to see what Mikel comes up with.
Well, yeah, that touches on the next question, because there was debate whether he should even start that game against Palace at the weekend. Some said bring Havertz back in, despite the hat-trick in midweek. I mean, after the 5 goals in, 3 days against Palace, is he now first choice centre forward? As you say, the Saka thing might change, Saka injury might change things, but is he now the starting centre forward until that form changes?
I think he has to be. I absolutely thought he had to start at Selhurst Park. I don't see how you can score a hat-trick in midweek as a striker, really find your form again, and then be left out at the weekend. That just wouldn't make any sense to me. So I was sure he was going to start that game, and he did. I think he'll start against Ipswich. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing more of Havertz and Jesus playing together now, because again, Arsenal are going to have to find a way to score more goals. They're going to have to find a way to make up for what they're going to be losing with Bukayo Saka. And, Mikel's been talking about it in the press conference in the last 24 hours or so. They're going to have to get creative. They're going to have to change the way they play now. They can't just be the same and just brings a like-for-like player in for Saka. So they're going to have to find other ways to make up for what they're missing, and whether you can then get more of your goal threats on the pitch at the same time. So you play Jesus up front and Havertz behind. It's something that still there's a little bit of scar tissue from Arsenal fans, I think, because those first few months of Havertz when he was playing in that left 8 position, it didn't work very well, and that's why he ended up getting moved up front, and then it all clicked, and we've seen a different Kai Havertz since then. And I think there's definitely a bit of a fear whenever Havertz gets pushed back into that midfield position of, oh no, are we going to see what we saw when he first arrived from Chelsea? But he played there at Selhurst Park, didn't he? You had him playing alongside Martin Odegaard, and you had Jesus ahead of him, and it worked. They both scored, and they were both really heavily involved. And it wouldn't surprise me if that's what we start seeing more now from Arsenal, just trying to get as many goal threats as they can on the pitch at the same time, because they are going to have to make up for what they're missing with Saka being out.
Yeah, on the goal threats front, we've spoken about it in the past, and it has been a bit of a talking point of Arsenal's season that they don't score enough goals, but they're now the first team in English top flight history to score 5 or more goals in 6 away games in the space of a calendar year. Is the sort of lack of goal threat narrative overblown a bit, or is it just the case that when you do score, you go and score a lot? It's those tighter games that you're struggling to find the breakthrough that you need that X factor player for, who can find a goal out of nothing? I
think it's exactly that. Arsenal can score goals. The records back it up. Mikel will point to it until the day he dies, how many goals Arsenal score, and the records that they've set scoring goals. And like you said, that record is just another one that they've added to their bow recently. But it's those games where you don't get an early goal, perhaps, and the teams you're playing against really get set in that sort of low block. And if you don't break them down after half an hour, 40 minutes, the game starts getting edgier. Who's going to be able to do that? And Arsenal have always struggled to then find a way through. So they score lots of goals, but then there's always seems to be patches in the season, maybe only last 2 or 3 games, when they just don't score in any of those games, and they struggle to create as well. It seems to be a bit of a recurring theme in Arsenal's seasons in the last few seasons. So I don't, as much as Mikel will point to the goals tally and the records and all that, it's undeniable that there's always a little period where they do struggle. And I suppose that's understandable, because players, teams, it's all sort of peaks and troughs. I don't know if you're Liverpool at the moment, and it's just constantly like that. But I still think there's something to be resolved there for Arsenal. There is still definitely room for, like you said, that X factor player who in those tight games can change things. And I do think Arsenal are aware of that as well. Whether that's something they fix in January, I'm still not sure. I still think it's probably more likely this summer, but we shall wait and see on that.